Ilia Topuria doesn't just fight, he annihilates. He doesn't just show up, he invades, eyes blazing with purpose, fists echoing the silence of broken dreams. In a world where fighters chase fame, Ilia walks with destiny. There's something primal about him, something ancient. He isn't just a man with knockout power. He's a symbol of chaos, of rebellion, of sharp edges forged by hard beginnings. Before the UFC cameras ever caught his name in flashing lights, Ilia was already burning from within, hungry, unbending, and obsessed. They call him El Matador, but he's more than that. He's a codebreaker, someone who cracked the MMA matrix. He was born in Germany, but Germany wasn't where his story would unfold. At just 7 years old, his parents moved the family to Georgia, their ancestral homeland. It was a tough land, a tougher life. Georgia was not just a home, it was a crucible. There, Ilia absorbed the culture, the values, the struggle. Greco-Roman wrestling wasn't just a sport, it was a language spoken by warriors. And Ilia became fluent. Wrestling mats became his battlefield. And blood, sweat, and perseverance were his daily rituals. He wasn't special yet, he was sharpening the blade, quietly, ruthlessly. At 13, something changed. He stumbled upon a mixed martial arts fight. The sheer violence, the dance between grappling and striking, awoke something buried deep inside, a hunger unlike anything he'd ever felt. MMA wasn't just exciting, it was a calling. He didn't just watch, he studied, obsessed. And without a professional gym, without access to world-class coaching, Ilia taught himself. Boxing techniques from YouTube, striking drills with his school friends, training sessions in abandoned corners. His rise didn't begin in the limelight, it began in the shadows, crafted by willpower and fire. When he was 15, another storm struck. His family moved again, this time to Spain. Ilia didn't know why, and he never asked. Georgia was behind him, but the lesson stuck. Spain offered little in terms of MMA infrastructure. There were no world-class gyms waiting for him. But Ilia didn't complain, he adapted. He trained in parks, hit pads with friends, wrestled on dusty mats. He watched, learned, practiced, failed, got up, and kept going. The world didn't know his name yet, but destiny was beginning to whisper it. Ilia Topuria. In 2015, Ilia made his professional debut. No fireworks, no cameras, just fists and grit. In 2016, he captured the MFE featherweight title. 8 fights, 8 wins, 6 submissions, 2 knockouts, no losses. Regional promotions couldn't contain him. There was a storm coming, and it had a name. In 2020, the UFC finally knocked. In less than 4 years, a nobody from Spain and Georgia was now standing under the brightest lights in the sport. But this was only the beginning. His UFC debut wasn't spectacular, but it was strategic. A unanimous decision victory over Youssef Zalal, a test, a warm-up. No highlight reel, but a clear statement. The kid had skill, and more importantly, he had awareness. Ilia knew he wasn't perfect yet. He didn't celebrate. He went back, rewired his weaknesses, sharpened his tools. And then came Damon Jackson. A storm of punches, surgical aggression. KO. The sound of fists hitting flesh echoed through the arena. Ilia had arrived. No questions left, just impact. He didn't stop there. Next came Ryan Hall, a ground specialist riding a wave of momentum. 13 takedown attempts denied. Precision, patience, destruction. Ilia sent Ryan crashing headfirst into the canvas, and the world finally saw what insiders feared. This man wasn't just hype. He was horror in motion. Fighters began whispering his name with caution. Coaches studied his tapes with worry. Ilia wasn't here to win decisions. He was here to end legacies. Jay Herbert came next, a lightweight, taller and rangier, and for a moment it seemed Ilia might fall. A clean shot rocked him, his legs wobbled. But fighters like Ilia don't go down. They reset and then retaliate. He exploded back with a right hand from hell that collapsed Herbert like scaffolding. Silence followed. One punch changed the fight, and everything after that was inevitable. They say Jay woke a demon that night, and the demon remembered. But while his fists were doing damage, his words were starting fights of their own. Ilia wasn't just a brawler, he had charisma, raw and unfiltered. His clash with Paddy Pimblett wasn't in the cage, it began in words, in jabs and insults, in threats and face-offs. Ilia wasn't backing down. He called out Paddy, challenged his manhood, demanded the UFC book the fight. But the organization hesitated. Paddy was a star, Ilia was a risk. So instead they fed him Bryce Mitchell, a ranked fighter with grappling credentials. Ilia didn't flinch. Bryce Mitchell walked into that cage thinking he could weather the storm. He thought he could slow Ilia down, control him, maybe even dominate him on the ground. But there's no blueprint for chaos. From the first bell, Ilia took command, not just physically, but spiritually. Every exchange drained Bryce, every clinch broke him a little more. And in round 2, it ended. Ilia flattened Bryce, slipped into mount, and choked him until all resistance vanished. He didn't just win, he made a statement. Loud, brutal, undeniable. El Matador wasn't asking for attention anymore. He was taking it. The win over Mitchell was supposed to be the setup for Paddy. The crowd wanted it, Ilia wanted it, but the UFC wasn't ready. They couldn't afford to lose a poster boy. So Topuria waited, and while he waited, he kept sharpening his weapons. Every interview, every tweet, every media appearance, he reminded the world that he was not just next. He was now. The fans were starting to see it. The fear in opponents' eyes, the poise in Ilia's. The pressure was building, and then the UFC finally gave him what he deserved. Josh Emmett, the co-main event, a real test, a ranked powerhouse known for his durability and knockout potential. But this wasn't a fight, it was a lesson. Ilia didn't just beat Emmett, he dismantled him. From round 1 to 5, it was a clinic. He showed everything: striking, movement, timing, wrestling, composure. It wasn't even close. 3 judges gave Ilia a lopsided decision. The crowd erupted. Analysts were stunned. Ilia's an eye, Yulia goal. The fans finally understood. Ilia Topuria wasn't just a contender, he was a predator. And the predator had a target. Alexander Volkanovski, the long-reigning featherweight king, a man who had defeated every challenger, from Max Holloway to Brian Ortega. Volk was a puzzle no one could solve. And Ilia, he called his shot. He didn't just say he'd beat Volkanovski, he said he'd do it everywhere. Stand-up, grappling, cardio, strategy, every department. He didn't blink. He didn't play politics. He just declared war. And when the UFC announced the fight, the entire MMA world held its breath. Volkanovski wasn't just a champion, he was an institution. Years of dominance, flawless performances, iron lungs, iron will, iron fists. If Ilia could beat him, he wouldn't just win a title, he'd shift the entire balance of the division. And so the build-up began. Press conferences turned into battlegrounds. Ilia doubled down on his confidence, even changing his Instagram bio to UFC featherweight champion before the fight. Volkanovski smirked. The fans laughed. But Ilia wasn't joking. He was forecasting. Fight night. Tension in the air like a storm about to crack the sky. From the opening bell, Ilia set the tone. He stalked Volkanovski with sharp footwork and sniper-like precision. Every jab had purpose. Every low kick chopped. And when the moment came, when Volkanovski's defense slipped for just a heartbeat, Ilia uncorked a right hand that flattened the champ. The arena exploded. The king was down. The empire had fallen, and a new ruler rose. Undefeated, untouched, undeniable. With the belt around his waist, Ilia didn't celebrate like a man who had arrived. He spoke like a man who never left. "I told you," he said almost coldly. "I don't need the judges." And he was right. He hadn't won by decision. He hadn't needed the clock. He had done what no one could. Knock out Alexander Volkanovski. Clean, clinical, legendary. The MMA world shifted. Power changed hands. And the featherweight division had a new sheriff, El Matador. But what do you do when there's no one left? Volkanovski had cleaned the division before him. Ilia did it faster. The belt didn't feel heavy enough. The fans were craving a worthy challenger. And the answer came in the form of a legend, a warrior, a BMF, Max Holloway. Fresh off a savage knockout of Justin Gaethje, Max was riding high. His hands had never looked faster. His fire had never burned hotter. And he was coming for Ilia. Ilia smiled. Another chance to make history. Max had never been knocked out, never been finished. He was war-tested, battle-hardened, beloved by millions. But Ilia didn't see a hero, he saw a target. "There's no way I'm not going to knock him out," he said. And again, nobody believed him. Max was too durable, too smart, too tough. But Ilia had made a career out of silencing doubt. And the Holloway fight was the perfect opportunity to do it again. Bigger, louder, bloodier. The bell rang. 5 rounds to settle everything. Max came in confident, slick, landing jabs and slipping punches with veteran finesse. But Ilia didn't flinch. He absorbed the data, measured the range, and began unloading heavier shots. Power met volume. Precision met pressure. For the first time in his career, Max Holloway looked vulnerable. He was still in it, always game, but Ilia's punches had weight, purpose, venom. And in the 3rd round, it happened. A massive overhand crashed through Max's guard, sending shockwaves through the arena. Holloway stumbled. The air shifted, and in the blink of an eye, the impossible became reality. Max Holloway was knocked down hard. The crowd went silent. The commentators screamed. The unthinkable had just unfolded before their eyes. The man with a granite chin, who had survived wars with Volkanovski, Poirier, Aldo, and Lamas, was now laid flat by the hands of Ilia Topuria. El Matador did it again. He made believers out of doubters, turned legends into statistics, and kept his undefeated legacy intact. The official decision was just a formality. The world already knew what happened. Ilia stood tall, and the featherweight division had just witnessed a second seismic quake within months. But Ilia didn't raise the BMF belt. He didn't claim that throne. He was after something bigger: legacy, respect, the kind of immortality that outlives titles. "They'll remember my name forever," he said, and he meant it. These weren't just fights, they were messages. And the message was clear: no one is safe. Max was a legend, Volkanovski was a dynasty, and Ilia, he was the one who ended both. But that hunger inside him didn't fade with success. It burned hotter, stronger. The world had crowned him. He still wanted more. The whispers started turning into debates. Could Ilia move up? Could he do what only the rarest fighters dare, conquer multiple divisions? And standing across that dream was Islam Makhachev, another monster. A champion built on the foundation of dominance, discipline, and Dagestani wrestling. But Ilia didn't blink. He didn't see the mountain. He saw a man. "I'll submit him," he said, with the same tone he used before Volkan Max. Calm, focused, fatal. The fans scoffed. The analysts hesitated. But deep down, they knew what was coming. Because with Ilia, the past always repeats. The potential fight with Islam started gaining traction. The storyline was too perfect. Georgia versus Dagestan, striker versus grappler, charisma versus composure. Ilia wasn't backing down. He even joked about submitting Islam with his favorite move, whichever one Makhachev feared the most. But the timing wasn't right yet. The UFC wanted to build the story. Ilia wanted to live it. So while the lightweight clash simmered in the background, Ilia took another fight. Against a name that echoed through generations, Charles Oliveira. The man with the most finishes in UFC history, a puzzle unlike any other. Charles wasn't like the others. He was chaos wrapped in serenity. He could drop you with a jab or strangle you with a smile. A true martial artist. But Ilia had seen it all, and he respected none of it. Respect wasn't survival. Only ruthlessness was. When the cage doors shut, Ilia didn't hesitate. He pressed forward like a tide. Oliveira showed flashes of brilliance, but it wasn't enough. Ilia neutralized his submissions, outboxed him, controlled the pace. Another victory, another name crossed off the list. The lightweight journey had begun. Now, 2 divisions feared him. The featherweights knew he was untouchable. The lightweights felt the tremors coming. Fans debated, could he become a 3-division champ? Could he do what no man ever has? Ilia didn't answer with talk. He answered with history. Every fight he took was a milestone. Every name he beat was another chapter in his legacy. And he wasn't done. Not even close. Because for Ilia, the greatest enemy isn't the man across the cage. It's time. And he wants to beat it before it ever catches him. Ilia Topuria isn't driven by revenge, or money, or fame. He's driven by a deep, obsessive need to prove that greatness is a choice, that fear can be weaponized, that destiny bows only to those who refuse to kneel, and so far, he's been right. No moment has overwhelmed him. No challenge has cracked him. The deeper the pressure, the sharper his performance. He doesn't just fight to win, he fights to dominate, to erase doubt, to send opponents into silence. And what he's building now isn't just a career, it's an era. The MMA world has never seen someone quite like him. A man who talks big and backs it up even bigger. A fighter who moves like a veteran, strikes like a sniper, and grapples like a ghost. He's not just undefeated, he's untouched. And behind every win is a message: no one is safe. Not Max, not Volk, not Islam, not Charles. El Matador is on a path paved in wreckage. And the scariest part? He's only just begun. Ilia's dominance isn't just athletic, it's psychological. He gets inside your head before the first punch is thrown. He stares through opponents, not at them. Every word he speaks is heavy. Every promise feels like prophecy. When he says he'll knock you out, it doesn't feel like trash talk. It feels like a sentence. He doesn't waste words. He delivers them like strikes. Sharp, efficient, final. He knows the sport better than most commentators. He studies not just techniques, but tendencies. He doesn't chase victory. He hunts weakness. And when he finds it, he destroys without hesitation or pity. There's an eerie calm in him, a stillness before storms. No theatrics, no desperation, just a man who knows exactly who he is and what he can do. When the cage closes, you see it. That unblinking focus, that predator's instinct. The moment you hesitate, he's already inside your rhythm, rewriting the script. Opponents don't just lose to Ilia, they unravel. They walk in with game plans and exit with haunted eyes. That's what separates legends from hype. That's what forges dynasties. And make no mistake, Ilia isn't building a record. He's building a legacy that will echo through generations. Even his fans are different. They're not just cheering, they're believers. In Spain, he's a national icon. In Georgia, he's a cultural hero. Around the world, he's a symbol of unrelenting ambition. Kids aren't just watching his fights, they're studying his mindset.